So a very good afternoon to all the members of this workshop. And we have been relishing and acquainting ourselves through some really engaging sessions as part of this 8-day long workshop on research project writing and data analysis, brought to you by Amity School of Communication in association with Amity's Academic Staff College. I'm sure the design of this workshop will be of value to each of the researcher and research enthusiasts. This has been made possible by the program joint directors, Dr. Ruhi Lal and Dr. Dharmendra Kumar, faculty coordinators, Dr. Ubair Ashfaq and Dr. Zakia T. Rahman, who have given instrumental shape to these sessions. The resource person for this session is Dr. Deepshikha Kalra, Dean and Professor at Management Education and Research Institute with more than 2 decades of experience in academics. She has been behind such high impact papers which have been published in national and international journals and conferences. She holds PhD in management from Guru Jambeshwar University, Hisar, and has a keen interest in managerial economics, business environment, customer relationship management, WTO, IPR, and specifically research methodology. Her astute knowledge of economics and management holds testimony to a number of national and international awards bestowed upon her. She is also a very prominent face on television and has been actively participating in television debates and has been expressing her views on various research-related topics. The ASCO family heartily welcomes you to the session, ma'am. I, Akshat Chopra, research scholar at ASCO, will be the moderator for this session, and which will touch upon topics like test of difference, independent sample t-test, one-way ANOVA, paired sample t-test, correlations and regression analysis, model fit using AMOS. Put simply, statistics is a range of procedures for gathering or organizing of data. And as we know that numbers reflect authenticity, it is obvious that society cannot be run effectively on the basis of hunches, and business and economics depends entirely on the correct analysis of numerical information. Decisions based on data will provide better results than those done through intuition or gut feeling. To understand the ways of analyzing data for our desired objectives and understanding the various techniques of quantitative investigation in research, without any further ado, I now invite our resource person to address the virtual gathering. Ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Akshat, for such a warm welcome. And you have spoken a lot about me, though I'm a very small person in this fraternity of academics as of now. Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Professor Dharmendra Kumar, for giving me this opportunity. And thank you, Dr. Ruhi, coordinating and showing confidence that I can take it. Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to all of you present here. We are here to discuss about research and testing, hypothesis testing. So without taking much time, I'll directly come to the topic because we have just 1 hour to cover t-test, ANOVA and chi-square, which are quite meticulous to do when we talk about research. And yes, I have a very keen interest in research. That's why I want that it should go inside you that why we are doing it, what the purpose and how we do it. So these are the 3 aspects we'll keep in mind, and based on that we'll go about. So starting, I'll just share a small PPT with you people with the very first introduction, which is about hypothesis. So I think my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. So starting with, I think you have already read from past 3-4 days about hypothesis. I'm just revising it again, that what is hypothesis and why we need to test the hypothesis. Let us first understand this. See, whenever we are talking about research, we are working on a sample, right? And whatever data we are collecting it for a sample. And we are doing the research with a particular objective. For example, I want to simply conduct a research on whether cryptocurrency is good investment or not, right? Whether is a safe, when I'm saying good, I'm basically considering that whether it is a safe investment or not. That is one objective with which I'm conducting this research of cryptocurrency. So based on those objectives, And based on my review of literature, whatever I have done with respect to cryptocurrency, there are certain aspects, there are certain thought process which culminate and which comes to my mind, and idea gets generated. Yes, cryptocurrency is not safe, right? Now I want to test it, that whether this assumption of mine is right or wrong. One way of testing it is that I go for a population or a census survey, that all the people, those who are interested in cryptocurrency and those who are the stakeholders for investment in cryptocurrency, I collect data from all of them, and then accordingly, whatever my results are, with full confidence, I can say that whether it is safe or it is not safe, right? When I'm going for a census population. But when we are talking about research and when our population size is so large, conducting a census is difficult. I would say it's not impossible, but it is very time-taking, time-consuming, and it involves a lot of cost also. So because of that reason only, we need to go for sample. And when I'm conducting that research for a sample, so I've collected data from a sample of, let's say, 500 people or 1,000 people. Now, what are their perceptions? Those perceptions I need to finalize for the complete population. Getting my point? मतलब हमने डेटा तो 1000 लोगों का कलेक्ट किया है, बट मुझे उस 1000 लोगों के डेटा के बेसिस पे पूरी पॉपुलेशन के बारे में एक चीज बतानी है कि वो राइट है या रॉन्ग है ना? हो सकता है वो 1000 लोग कहें कि क्रिप्टो करेंसी सेफ नहीं है, ये लीगल नहीं होनी चाहिए, बट हो सकता है बाकी जो मेरी 10,000 की पॉपुलेशन है उनका कुछ और व्यू हो. मुझे वो जो भी मेरे रिजल्ट्स आए हैं 1000 लोगों के, उनको फाइनलाइज करना है पूरी पॉपुलेशन के लिए, उनको एक्सट्रापोलेट करना है पूरी पॉपुलेशन के लिए. तो वो हम कैसे कर सकते हैं? वो मैं मीन मीडियन मॉड से नहीं कर सकती, मतलब सिंपल डिस्क्रिप्टिव स्टैटिस्टिक से नहीं कर सकती, क्योंकि डिस्क्रिप्टिव स्टैटिस्टिक तो 1000 पे लग रही है और मेरा इन्फर कितने के लिए कर रही हूं मैं? 10,000 के लिए. तो वहां इन्फ्रेंशियल स्टैटिस्टिक्स आती है, और जब इन्फ्रेंशियल स्टैटिस्टिक्स आती है तब कॉन्सेप्ट आता है हाइपोथेसिस टेस्टिंग का, राइट? और उस इन्फ्रेंशियल स्टैटिस्टिक्स में हाइपोथेसिस टेस्टिंग सिर्फ इतना काम कर रही है आपका कि जो भी आपने सैंपल के लिए रिजल्ट्स निकाले हैं, क्या वो पॉपुलेशन के लिए भी इक्वली इम्प्लीमेंटेबल है या इक्वली राइट है या नहीं है, ये चीज चेक कर रहे हैं हम हाइपोथेसिस टेस्टिंग से. सबसे पहले तो हमें ये चीज क्लियर होनी चाहिए कि हम हाइपोथेसिस टेस्टिंग से कर क्या रहे हैं. Have you understood? I don't know how many participants are there, but probably the participants must have understood what I'm trying to explain. It's an online class, so I also need certain affirmations, whether you are listening or not listening. Yes? We have people like Mansi, Shweta.
So, ma'am, I think we can continue further, and everyone will join gradually, and they'll be expressing their views towards the end.
Okay, should I wait for a few minutes? Because
no, ma'am, we can continue, ma'am. We can continue with the topic.
We can continue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I was just hoping that there would be some responses from that particular side to motivate me to move further. Okay. So now point comes what actually hypothesis is. अभी हमने डिस्कस किया कि hypothesis testing करनी क्यों है. Hypothesis testing इसलिए करनी है क्योंकि सैंपल के डेटा को मुझे फाइनली प्रूव करना है पॉपुलेशन के डेटा के लिए, और मुझे चेक करना है कि अब वो पॉपुलेशन के लिए भी इक्वली इंप्लीमेंट हो रहा है या इक्वली राइट है या नहीं है, इसीलिए मैं हाइपोथेसिस टेस्टिंग कर रही हूँ. नाउ द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन कम्स, व्हाट एक्चुअली हाइपोथेसिस इज. Yeah, I would like to know how many of you know about hypothesis, though I've written on the slide also, but still, what actually hypothesis is.
So participants, if you want, you can also write down in the chat box and we can read it from there.
Tentative assumption of the study, yes. From where this tentative assumption comes? Is it your own assumption or is it based on review of literature? Review, right, right. Yes, this has to be very, very clear, and we should understand this point very clearly, that hypothesis cannot be the assumption of a researcher or of an individual researcher. Why? Because whenever we are talking about research, we are saying that researcher has to be unbiased, है ना, उसे biased नहीं होना है, उसे unbiased काम करना है. तो अगर hypothesis वो अपनी assumption के basis पे बना देंगे तो वो biased hypothesis होगी, फिर उसकी testing या non testing का कोई मतलब ही नहीं होता. So that's why hypothesis comes from review. So when during the review literature part only we create our hypothesis. हम अपनी hypothesis review literature के time ही बना देते हैं क्योंकि hypothesis review से ही आती है. अब point आता है कि hypothesis review से कैसे बनेगी? How will we create hypothesis from review? Because it's a tentative assumption. Will we go as per what the review is saying or how? See, when you are doing review, जब हम review literature करते हैं किसी भी topic का, उस review literature में कुछ रिसर्चर्स, कुछ ऑथर्स एक पर्टिकुलर कॉन्सेप्ट के फेवर में होते हैं, कुछ ऑथर्स एक पर्टिकुलर कॉन्सेप्ट के फेवर में नहीं होते. क्रिटिसिज्म हो सकता है. एक हाइपोथेसिस बनाने का पॉइंट वहां से आता है. लेट्स से 4 लोग कह रहे हैं कि क्रिप्टो करेंसी सेफ नहीं है और बाकी 2 लोग कह रहे हैं कि क्रिप्टो करेंसी सेफ है. सो देयर इज अ बोन ऑफ कंटेंशन. सो फ्रॉम देयर आई कैन प्रिपेयर अ हाइपोथेसिस, or that gives me an idea that this is a scope of research I can go for, and that's why I need to check whether hypothesis is okay ma'am, I'll use English, don't worry. So I need to check whether hypothesis is whether cryptocurrency is safe or not, because there is a difference of opinion between the 2 authors. That's why we are talking about, or that's why we are creating an hypothesis to check whether it is safe investment or not a safe investment, right? Another way of creating an hypothesis is directional hypothesis. Directional, when all the researchers are talking in a particular direction and they are heading to a particular point, and based on that I create a hypothesis. So that's how we say it's a tentative assumption. It could be descriptive, it could be relational, it could be working, or then further for statistical purpose we say null or alternate. When I say descriptive hypothesis, means describing some characteristic of an object, a situation, an individual, or even an organization. Like for example, I've written why youngsters prefer X soft drinks, or decentralization of decision making is more effective or not. We are trying to describe this, how this hypothesis have been generated. These hypotheses have been generated through review literature only, right? I have done a review literature. One review literature was when I was doing review literature related to soft drinks. My literature was saying, and all the researchers related to soft drinks were directing towards one point, one brand, and most of the reports were saying that that brand is preferred by youngsters more in comparison to other age groups. So that was my research question, that why youngsters prefer brand X. Based on this, I'll create a hypothesis that brand X is preferred among youngsters. Okay, I think there is, let me explain it more. I'll add a slide and then I'll write in. See, there are 2 aspects. One is research question, and another is your hypothesis. See, research question is whatever I want to research for, why I want to research for a particular topic, what my objectives are. They are in interrogative form, and the statement form of those research questions is basically your hypothesis, which you want to check. Because why we are conducting a research? We are conducting a research to get some solution to a particular question of ours, and that solution or that probable solution or assumption lies in hypothesis. Like for example, if I'm talking about this soft drink, well, like example of soft drink, then if my literature says brand X is preferred more by youngsters, right? So my research question will be, what will be my research question? My research question will be why brand X is preferred, right? This is my research question. Now, based on this research question, I'll further do the review literature and then I'll try to find out those variables which lead to preference for this particular brand X, right? Now, those variables could be packaging, those variables could be the promotions, those variables could be the taste, that could be anything, right? Most of the researchers are saying that because of the, let's say, most of the researchers are saying that because of the packaging, brand X is preferred more by youngsters, right? So my hypothesis will be there is significant impact of packaging on preference for a brand, or there is a significant impact of packaging for brand preference in terms of soft drinks. Yeah, just tell me, have you understood this much, what I'm trying to explain? How I have come down to this hypothesis? I've come down to this hypothesis based on my literature. We were studying various reports. We went through various literature of the authors, which prompted me to raise this question that why this brand is preferred. Then we further did the review literature. It gave us certain aspects, and those aspects talked about certain variables, and one of those variables was packaging. So based on that, I have created one hypothesis that this is just an hypothesis as of now. We have still not checked it. We have still not tested it. My test, my research, my data will prove or disprove it. It is simply an assumption as of now, whereby I'm saying that there is significant impact of packaging for brand preference in terms of brand preference of soft drinks. This is simply an hypothesis as of now, and it has come after review literature. Definitely there is some, if I'll say that it has come because of the author's own view, then it will become wrong, because then it will become biased. So we'll have to write that it is after review literature, right? Can I proceed further?
Yes, ma'am. Also, can there be any research which does not involve any formulation of a hypothesis?
Any formulation, how can there be a research without hypothesis? Definitely, if you are doing some secondary data, you would say, if I'm doing secondary data analysis, then also you'll have to prove or disprove a hypothesis, because you have to come down to a solution to your research questions, an answer to your research questions. If I'm conducting a research, I'm trying to find out answers to some of the queries, and answer to those queries is my hypothesis only.
Right.
Right. So hypothesis has to be there. How can you conduct a research or come down to a solution without hypothesis? Even if we are doing calculating mean, median, mode, we are trying to prove it, that whether there is a difference or not. Even in census population, you are doing that. Yeah, can I proceed? Dr. Ruhi?
Yes, ma'am.
Your mic is muted, I think. Hello?
I think we can proceed.
We can proceed? Okay. Okay, now let me just talk in terms of statistics only. When we talk about statistical analysis of hypothesis, we create two types of hypothesis, null and alternate. Now, probably you must be knowing what's the difference between null and alternate hypothesis. Yeah, what's the difference between null and alternate hypothesis? Is there any answer or should I proceed further?
So I can see somebody writing that a null hypothesis is often an initial claim that is based on previous analysis or knowledge. And alternative hypothesis is stating that a population parameter is smaller or greater or different than the hypothesized value in the null hypothesis. So it is an alternative claim, alternative hypothesis.
Actually, I'm not able to see what's written in the chat window. A null hypothesis is somebody has written no difference statement. Okay. And Akshat, you were also reading. Okay. Yeah, let me talk about it. Yes, when we talk about null and alternate hypothesis, null hypothesis, as someone has written no difference in statement, or alternate, someone has written difference in statement, that's very in layman term or very initial stage we talk about null and alternate that way. Alternate is basically what you want to prove. What's your assumption? What you have come out through review literature, that is your alternate hypothesis. And null is reverse of it. Null and alternate are always reverse of it. And as very rightly mentioned in the book of Mr. N.K. Malhotra, that is a book of marketing research, he has also mentioned, and N.D. Field has also mentioned it, that null is always for rejection. Null hypothesis is always framed for rejection, and alternate is what actually you want to prove. So from your review literature, if you are finding, and if your assumption is like packaging has an important aspect, so packaging has an important impact, that will be my alternate, and packaging has no impact will be my null, right? So what actually I want to prove, or what I have framed through my review literature, that is most of the time is our alternate hypothesis, and the reverse of it is null hypothesis. And we conduct all tests on null hypothesis only. All the tests are conducted on null only. The statistical symbol of null hypothesis is X bar is equal to, we say that there is no difference, as somebody has written in the chat window also, that null is no difference statement and alternative is the complementary statement. Yes, that is also one way of explaining null and alternate. Someone has asked me why null and alternative hypothesis are two-tailed test. Okay, I'll talk about two-tailed and one-tailed test also. Just let me complete this part. See, null hypothesis, yes, a normal symbol is when I am saying that the mean of sample is equal to mean of population, that there is no difference between the sample mean and the population mean. I am equating them together, they are equal, then it is null hypothesis, right? Or if I am saying mean of sample 1 is equal to mean of sample 2, that is also null hypothesis. Whenever I am saying that mean of sample is not equal to mean of population, is not equal to mean of population, means either mean of sample is greater than mean of population or mean of sample is lesser than mean of population, then that is alternate. So if I'm saying there is a significant impact, so if I am saying A is greater than B, A has a greater impact on B, A has a lesser impact on B, such hypothesis will be alternate hypothesis. And when I'm saying A and B are equal, or A and B has an equal impact, then such hypothesis will be null hypothesis, right? Now, somebody has asked me what is one-tailed and two-tailed test. One-tailed test is one-tailed. Before understanding one-tailed and two-tailed test, we'll have to understand one aspect, that is the concept of normal distribution, which is the assumption of all the when I'm conducting t-test or when I'm conducting ANOVA, this is one assumption which we take, that our series is normally distributed. Our data is normally distributed. This is one assumption, and that's why we need to check for this assumption also. Only after that we can apply the test. So when we are talking about normal distribution, in a normal distribution, mean, median, mode lies at the center, and then you have a bell-shaped curve. You have one bell-shaped curve for normal distribution. If I'm talking about one-tailed test means that there are areas of rejection on one side. One side means if my null hypothesis is X is greater, let's say my alternate hypothesis is X is greater than Y, right? So when can be the rejection? When can be the rejection? If when will I reject this hypothesis? I'm saying X is greater than Y. In what scenario I'll reject? Only one case of rejection will be there now, when X will be less than Y. Right? When, see, one-tailed test is when you have rejection only in one single case. Two-tailed test when you have rejection for two cases. Means when you are trying to find out answer between a range, then there will be rejections for both the sides. If your data is above that range or if your data is below that range, then in both the cases there will be rejections. So that will be two-tailed test. And if I'm saying, okay, because I'm not getting responses from that side, so I'm not able to understand whether you are getting it or not. If I say that the height of, I'm just explaining. If I say that, let's say the height of a male and a female in India are equal, right? So in this case, or the height of a male and a female in India lies between 5 feet to 6 feet. Anybody having a, if my data has values more than 5 feet or, less than 5 feet and more than 6 feet, both the cases are rejected. Both the cases are rejected now. What I'm saying, the average height of a male and a female in India lies between 5 feet to 6 feet, right? So if my data has values less than 5 feet, then also my hypothesis is rejected. If my data has values more than 6 feet, then also my hypothesis is rejected, right? So it's a two-tailed test. And when I'm saying that the average height of a male and a female is 6 feet, then only in case of my data greater than, average height of male and a female in India is greater than 5 feet, then only in case of less than 5 feet, my hypothesis is rejected. No? So it is one-tailed test. Should I write it? So there can be two cases of rejection. There can be two cases of rejection. One, when average height is more than 6 feet. Second, when average height is less than 5 feet. There can be two cases of rejection. So this is two-tailed test. Both sides rejections will lie. Less than 5 feet rejection area will be there. Greater than 6 feet rejection area will be there. So it's a two-tailed. If I'm saying average height of a male and female in India is greater than 5 feet, then there can be only one case of rejection. One case of rejection when average height is less than 5 feet. So the rejection area lies only in one side in this. Just imagine the normal distribution curve. I cannot draw it right now. So I am imagining, just imagine the normal distribution curve in your mind right now. And then you will understand in this case, only one side rejection area is lying. So this is one tail test. In the previous case, the rejection area was lying both the sides, right hand side also, left hand side also. So that was a two tail test. Right? So it depends on our hypothesis, whether it is a one-tail test or a two-tail test. Someone has written in question and answer. Which hypothesis gives more accurate results? So it's not the hypothesis which gives you more accurate results. It's the test which gives you more accurate results. Hypothesis depends on you, what kind of hypothesis you frame. And depending upon the hypothesis you have framed, you select the test, and then finally we get the results. Like for it depends on your objectives, what your objectives are. Based on that, once you frame a hypothesis, then you need to select the right test for it to get the better results. Let me explain it more with more example. Let's say in your hypothesis, you say that TV watching is gender biased. Let's say this is one of your hypothesis, TV watching is gender biased. This is my alternate hypothesis, and my null is TV watching is not gender biased, right? Now in this, I have two variables. One is TV watching, another is gender. Now what kind of these two variables are? Are they both metric or non-metric? Just tell me that. I'm saying I'm writing it here. I'm saying TV watching is I wanted to test this, whether TV watching is gender biased or not. I wanted to test this simple hypothesis. I wanted to conduct this simple research. So I framed my alternate hypothesis as TV watching is gender biased. Now in this hypothesis, I have two variables. One is TV watching and another variable is gender. Right? Now TV watching will be metric or non-metric? TV watching, can I measure TV watching on some numbers or some ratio scale? Yes. Can I? No. Yeah. Yeah, someone has written metric. No. TV watching is non-metric. Non-metric in the sense I cannot measure it, or I would rather write it as nominal or ordinal. Nominal or ordinal scale. I can measure it only on nominal and ordinal scale TV watching. Either high, low, very low, or yes or no, right? High, low, very low if I'm doing, then that is ordinal. So both are non-metric. I'm not giving them, I cannot give them exact numbers. Gender is also non-metric, nominal data. So in this case, both the variables are nominal when both the non-metric. So I'll have to apply non-parametric test, right? If With this hypothesis, I'll apply a parametric test. My hypothesis will give wrong results. And whatever results will be there, they'll not be meaningful. While if my hypothesis would have been sales is gender based, right? Sales of TV is gender based, then sales can be measured on exact terms. So this will become a metric variable. When I have one variable as metric and another as non-metric, then I can apply parametric tests like t-test or other test. And then parametric test will give me better results in comparison to non-parametric test. Right? So it's not the hypothesis, it's the type of test you are applying based on your hypothesis, which will give you better results. Right? How can we, someone has written in the chat window, we can measure TV watching. Can we measure it in exact terms? It depends. If you are saying in number of hours, yes. If I say number of hours TV is watched, right? TV watching in number of hours. If I measured in number of hours, then yes, it is a metric data and I'll apply a parametric test on it. Or if I have measured TV watching in terms of your TRP and all you are talking about, then it will be metric data. But if you have measured TV watching in terms of like high, low, what I'm saying, TV watching is high, TV watching is low, or average, then it will be non-parametric test, which will give you better results. So it depends on what scale you have measured your variable. If the variables are non-metric, then non-parametric test will give better results for your hypothesis. If they are metric, then parametric test will give the better results for your hypothesis. Further, there are so many other things, multivariate, bivariate, and so many other aspects are there. But in general, this is, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you have measured it through TRP and that's in exact numbers, then yes, both the variables will be metric and then you will apply parametric test, right? I was imagining it as high, low, average. That's what I spoke also. So that's why I said TV watching is an ordinal scale and gender is nominal scale. So I'll apply non-parametric test. Yeah, gender is not metric, right? Neha, you have written right. Yes, high, low, or average is also related to number of hours. Yes. See, Mr. Pramod, it is how I have collected the data in my questionnaire, or in what form I have collected the data. If I have collected the data in terms of high, low, and I have my definition of high is, let's say, 5 to 10 hours or 10 to 14 hours, and low, then it is an ordinal scale. If I have collected the data in exact number, 5 hours, 5.5 hours, 6 hours, 6.6 hours, then it becomes a metric data where I apply the metric scale, right? So let me take some other variable. It has become controversial because everybody has their own way of thinking it. I'm just trying to explain it. Even for sales also, I can do high, low, and average. But if I have measured sales in exact number, then it will be metric. If I have measured sales as high, low, average, where I have given a scale, it means if it lie between 30 units to 40 units, it is low. If lie between 50 to 60, it is average. If lie between 60 and above, it is high. Then the same sales will become ordinal and will become non-metric. And I'll have to apply a non-parametric test rather than parametric test. So it depends how you have collected it, how you are measuring it. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. But this kind of interaction is good because it helps in understanding the concepts better. I would request the audience to ask queries as much as, because sometimes it so happen, we think being you, all people being faculty, you understand these things. So I may miss certain points. Your questions are most welcome. Thank you. So I think null and alternate hypothesis clear. Can we proceed further? So these are the certain steps which are involved in hypothesis testing in journal. These are the steps involved. First step is definitely formulate the hypothesis. Second is select the level of significance, find the critical reason, select an appropriate test, calculate value, obtain critical test value, and make decision. Now, what is this level of significance is? What is level of significance? Do I need to work on it, or should I quickly switch to t-test and all? Because it's already 2:45. Ruhi ma'am?
Ma'am, you can give a brief information about it so that
Okay.
they will connect.
Yeah. Okay, I'll quickly talk about what is level of significance. Level of significance, you must have witnessed n number of times people saying 5% level of significance, 1% of level significance, or you must have read in research papers also that the hypothesis is accepted at 95% of confidence, or a hypothesis is rejected at 95% of confidence, but accepted at 99% of confidence, right? You must have read statements like this. Now, from where that 95% or 99% or 90% has come, or what that confidence level is, for that, there is one concept in statistics which is known as level of significance. Now, what is this level of significance? When I'm saying level of significance 5%, 5% level of significance means that from my complete data, which I have collected, there are 5% chances that this data may deviate from the results which I'll come up with, right? For example, my data, my hypothesis gets rejected, okay, at 5% level of significance. It means that rest of the 95% values are following the results which my hypothesis is giving, which my tests are giving, right? Suppose we talked about, let me go back to this, whereby we said TV watching is gender based, right? Once I apply the hypothesis testing to it and I test it at 5% level of significance, let's say this hypothesis get accepted, right? It means that from the complete data of which I collected, of that data, I am confident only for 95% of values. Rest 5% value has come because that is a standard error which always come when we talk about statistical analysis. That is random error which always creeps in, which we cannot reduce to that particular aspect, to a large aspect, which will always be there. So that's why we can never be 100% confident when we are doing hypothesis testing. We'll have to take some amount of error all the time. And that is what is this 5%, 1% I'm talking about. Right? So whenever you are testing the hypothesis, you have to select one level of significance, that at what level of significance or what amount of error by default you are taking into it, and what rest values you are saying will suffice to this particular result. Generally, we take 5% level of significance. That is the most acceptable level of significance when we talk about social sciences. Then within that 5% level of significance, we calculate the critical region that our data should lie within this particular region only. And test depends upon whether you have parametric or non-parametric whether you have metric or non-metric variables, and your dependent, independent variable, whether you have one independent variable or two dependent variables. Based on that, we decide what test will be the most appropriate test, right? But whenever we are doing hypothesis testing, it is not that always it will be 100% correct. There can be errors in hypothesis testing also. There can be two kinds of errors in hypothesis testing. One is when a hypothesis is rejected when it is true. Another, when a hypothesis is not rejected when it is false. This can happen if you have not selected the right test, or if there are anomalies in the data and you have not checked the various assumptions related to data, and you have directly applied the test and you have come up with the answer that hypothesis is rejected or hypothesis is not rejected, then at times it so happens that a true hypothesis may get rejected and a false hypothesis may get accepted. So we have to be very, very cautious when we are applying a particular test. We need to check that whether all the assumptions related to that particular test are applicable, are fulfilled or not, right? If I'm saying that for every hypothesis testing, one general assumption is that data is normally distributed. So we need to check normal distribution of the data, that whether it is normally distributed or not. Okay, Vandana, I'll explain again level of significance. There are some question and answers also, no? Vandana, level of significance, if I'm taking 5% as level of significance, it means as a researcher, I'm assuming well in advance that there are chances that 5% of my data may not follow the results which I'll come out with after applying the statistical analysis. So I'm confident whatever my results will be, for those results, I will always claim that 95% these values will always follow this kind of result. 5% error will be there. That is the simple layman explanation or a simple explanation of level of significance. What I want to say, let me just explain you with one more example. Let's say you have collected the data of 500 people, right? And let's say this is the data of 500 students I've collected, right? And my hypothesis was that these 500 students have average marks in research as their average marks in research are 50 out of 100 or 50 out of 60, right? This is what my hypothesis was. And I collected the data of 500 students. And after collecting the data, I applied the t-test and I found that this alternate hypothesis get accepted, right? When I'm saying this hypothesis is accepted, so I am saying that 95% of the students which lie in this particular data will have their average marks as 50 only. 5% chances are there that my series may deviate from this data. So I am confident for my 95% of values. That is the simple meaning of level of significance. That there can be 5% values which can go above or below 50. Yeah, Vandana, is it clear? See, there are many other explanations also when we talk about level of significance, alpha error, beta error, and we say alpha error increases, beta error decreases. That's why we take level of significance as 5%. So that because beta error if you understand, I can explain it through in that context also. Okay. Okay, so I was talking about errors that in order to reduce these errors, so when I'm saying that hypothesis is rejected when it is true, right? So this error which you normally read in your statistics books or research books, you must have read alpha error and beta error, right? Rejected when it is true, this is alpha error. Or another name for it is type 1 error. Right? Hypothesis is not rejected, means accepted when it is false. This is beta error. And also known as type 2 error. Now, once I have written this, tell me which kind of error will be more dangerous for us? Alpha or beta? See, there are a lot of controversies on this particular topic when we talk about this, which error is more dangerous. If I look at from a management angle, if I look at from the operations or a productions angle, then type 2 error is more dangerous. But when we look at from the research error, alpha error is more dangerous for us, that our true hypothesis gets rejected. What we were considering right has not been accepted. So that's why we want to reduce it. Yes, Sunil sir, you have written absolutely right. Both of you are right. Neha and Sunil sir, Neha ma'am and Sunil sir, both of you are right. Because Neha ma'am is talking in terms of research aspects. Whenever you will read in terms of research aspects, alpha error is more dangerous and reducing it is more difficult. And when we are talking about productions and operations aspect, beta error is more dangerous. And that's why we need to balance out both the things, and the best balance we get it at 5% level of significance. And that's why I told you that this is the most acceptable level of significance, which is 5% level of significance. Right? There is a lot of statistical explanation to it, but that will consume a lot of time if I go in explaining that, why alpha error is increasing and when beta error is increasing and how we can reduce it. So just understand this, to have the minimum impact of alpha and beta error, we have chosen the best level of significance, which is 5% level of significance, right? So in journal, we have, two types of analysis, univariate and bivariate. I'm supposed to talk about these analysis today, and two tests, parametric test and non-parametric test. When I'm talking about parametric test, I'll be discussing about t-test and ANOVA, and in non-parametric, I'll be talking about chi-square test, right? So let me just open my SPSS window to come down to t-test, or let me just brief you about t-test little bit. I think most of you must be aware about t-test. Oh, okay. Just simply, I'll explain. T-test is to compare the means. When we are to compare the means, then we apply t-test. Suppose I want to check that who has scored more, whether girls have scored more or boys have scored more in in an examination of research methodology, and I have data for both girls and boys, and I want to check out of these two who have scored more, then I'll apply t-test. The only it is to compare the means and find out whether there is a significant difference between the two or not. For that purpose, we apply t-test. ANOVA is nothing. ANOVA is an extension of t-test only, or it is multiple times t-test only. Multiple t-test is known as ANOVA, right? So when I have more than two series, when I want to compare between more than two series, then I'll apply ANOVA. If I have to compare means of two series, then I'll apply t-test. Like if I have to compare between a male and a female, so I'll apply t-test. But if I have to compare between male, female and transgender, then I'll apply ANOVA, because it is more than two series, then I'll apply ANOVA. Another difference between t-test and ANOVA is that t-test finds out an answer, whereby t-test finds out the difference. Difference in the sense it is based on difference, which says, let's say I'm comparing male and female, and male series I'm representing by X and female series I'm representing by Y. So X minus Y is 0. अगर मैं ये कह रही हूँ कि if I'm saying that there is no difference between X and Y, then if X minus Y is 0, then also it is right. And if X divided by Y is 1, then also it is right, na? In both the cases, it means there is no difference between X and Y. Right? When X by Y is 1, that also means that there is no difference between X and Y. And when X minus Y is 0, that also means there is no difference between X and Y. So when I am calculating X minus Y is 0, basically I am applying t-test. And when I am doing X divided by Y is 1, then I am basically applying ANOVA. Right? And another difference is, means ANOVA is based on ratio and t-test is based on difference. And ANOVA is applied when we have more than two series, and t-test is applied when we have two series. So let me just quickly show you one sample of t-test, because otherwise purpose will be defeated if I'll not show you the SPSS application to find out t-test.
We were talking about t-test. T-test, a parametric test, will be applied in scenarios when you have to compare two series in the sense, whereby two series means in your groups, you have two variables to. I think you are on mute, so you can unmute yourself. Sorry. We will apply t-test in a scenario whereby I have my dependent variable as non-metric and it has two series, and my independent variable is metric. Then I'll apply t-test. Like for example, I just gave you one example that I want to check that whether sales depend on gender or not. I want to check whether the sales of laptops depend on gender or not. So my sales is independent variable, right? Or independent variable. I'm saying my sales, whether sales of laptop depend on gender or not. So what is sales in this case? Dependent or independent? Yeah, sales is dependent variable in this case. Yes, ma'am, I'm sharing the screen. Please bear. There is some technical glitch. I've joined through another device right now. I'm sharing in another 5-10 minutes. Just a moment. That's why I'm just talking about it.
if I say whether, if I want to check whether sales depend on gender or not. So here my sales is a dependent variable and gender is an independent variable, right? And let's say in this, we have measured gender as male and female only. I measured gendered as male and female only. So how many series we have in this independent variable? 2 series, one is of male, another is of female, right? So my independent variable is non-metric and has 2 series, and my dependent variable is metric and it is on single value. So I'll apply t-test in this case. Had it been that I would have measured my gender on 3 series, that is male, female, and transgender, then in the same example, I would have applied ANOVA, or I will apply ANOVA, right? So let me write it down also. I'm writing in the chat window because once it is written, it is more clear. I'm saying I want to check whether sales of laptop depends on gender or not. Case 1, when I have measured gender as male and female, right? Case 1, when I've measured gender as male and female, that is only, that is 2 series. Data has 2 categories, or which data I'm talking about? My independent data, my independent variable has 2 categories. So I'll apply. So we will go for t-test, right? Case 2, same scenario, problem is same, whether sales of laptop depend on gender or not. But in case 2, when we have measured gender as male, female, and transgender. In this case, we will apply ANOVA. And the full form of ANOVA is analysis of variance, right? Now, once we'll, let's say we are first talking about t-test. Now, t-test can be applied when once you'll open, I'll just share the SPSS window. So there are 3 t-tests which are given. Single sample, when you have a single sample, you want to check on single sample means I have some values I have the mean value of the population and I want to compare, and I have collected a data of a sample. I want to compare whether my sample is from the same population or not. So I'll apply single sample t-test. Like for example, I am saying that the average height of Indians is 5 feet. Now you have collected a data and you want to check that whether your data also gives the same values, that average height of Indians is 5 feet or not. Then I'll apply single sample t-test, right? Another scenario can be independent sample. Independent samples. Independent samples t-test is independent samples t-test is Just like we took example above, whereby we took the example of male and female, means both are independent. Neither male is affecting female nor the other way around. So both are independent samples, and we want to check whether their values are same or whether their means are same or different. Then I'll apply independent sample t-test. Another is paired sample t-test. Paired sample t-test is applied when both the sample are dependent on each other. Like, for example, there are cases when you want to find out whether training has improved the performance of employees or not. So employees are same. For the same sample, I collected data before training and I collected data after training. So then I'll apply paired sample t-test, right? So three conditions, three kind of t-test we are talking about, three conditions we are talking about. Sorry, I'm little sorry, trying to fix it up. Little sorry, I'll just continue with that. Three conditions we are talking about. Condition one, I have to compare my sample values with my population values. Single sample t-test you will apply. Condition two, you have two different samples and both the samples are collected independently. None of them is affecting each other. So independent sample t-test will be applied. Condition three, same sample before and after. There are cases of before and after, before pandemic, after pandemic, before the adoption of the online teaching, after the adoption of the online teaching, what are the results? So when the same sample has been studied under different scenarios and you want to check out whether their averages have changed, whether their mean values have changed or not, then you will apply paired sample t-test, right? Three conditions are clear. And before applying t-test, first condition we need to check is whether our data is normally distributed or not. So how we will check that normal distribution and all? There is one test, that is KS test. I'm just, everything has opened. Just wait for 1 minute. I'll share the screen, then it will be more clear. Thank you for your motivation. Thank you so much. I have typed so many things in the chat window, but I think it has gone to panelists only. Panelists, please, can you please share with everyone so that they can also read it out? Till that time, I'll continue. I'm really sorry. It's not working. They are looking for it where it has hung. Sorry for that. Let me continue with that. So for the test of normality, what we need to check? We need to go for KS test. There is one KS test which you will find in SPSS once you will click on non-parametric test. KS test is a non-parametric test, and this test is done to check the normality of the data, that whether the data is normally distributed or not. And the journal hypothesis of the KS test is data is not normally distributed. This is the null hypothesis of KS test. Okay, Dr. Paris, this test is to check the normality of the data. We have a data for which we want to apply t-test. And before applying t-test, we need to check the assumption of normality, that whether the assumption of normality is met or not. If the assumption of normality is met, only then we'll continue with the t-test. Otherwise, we look for McNemar or other test, right? So for that purpose, we will first conduct KS test on. Okay. So we are talking about t-test, Dr. Paris, and for checking the normality, we are applying KS test. And the hypothesis of KS test, standard hypothesis of KS test is data is not normally distributed. This is the standard hypothesis of KS test. Once you will apply KS test. It should be rejected. If your hypothesis is rejected, then it says that your data is normally distributed, and then you can further apply the t-test. If that is not the scenario, then you cannot apply t-test, right? Now the point is, how will I decide whether my hypothesis is rejected or not rejected? You know, whatever test I am applying, so how can I check this? How can I check this? There is one concept of p-value. And that p-value, if p-value is less than 0.05, because we took our significance level as 5%. You know? So that 5% was that there is 5% probability error. 5% probability error is there. If p-value is less than 5, null hypothesis is rejected.
Yeah, sorry, finally the SPSS window is it visible?
Yes, it is visible, ma'am.
It is visible.
Okay, thank you, thank you. I'm not able to view it. I'll put in the data on my own rather than. This blank screen is visible to all of you?
It is visible, ma'am.
Yeah. Look at this blank screen. I'll input the data and then I'll explain it. That would be better. We have one data view. We have one variable view. I think most of you are aware about this. What is data view and variable view? We enter, we first of all define our variables and then we enter the data in the data view. Suppose my one variable was gender and another variable was sales. See, the moment I have written gender, it has taken rest of the value on its own, but I'll have to define the values here. If I am reducing the value width of it to 0, because the gender decimal point I am reducing to 0. This decimal point I have reduced to 0 because we are talking about gender. So it will be 1, 2. There is no meaning of 1.1, 1.2 and so on. Label, it is gender of, you may write down simple gender. Values. Now, once you click on this values, you'll get this pop-up. Now, value 1 means, let's say male. I have given a coding of 1 to male and I have given a coding of 2 to female. Right? I add it, click OK. There is no missing value, right aligned measure. And this is a nominal data, so I'll convert it into a nominal data, right? Sales, yes, there can be decimal values of the sales also. This is the sales of laptop, let's say. Right? Values, there are no values as such, there is no coding, but I'm taking the exact values and considering the metric values of it. That's why the measure I'll take as scale measure only, right? See, in SPSS, you have only 3 scales: scale, ordinal, and nominal. While in journal, when we talk about, we say interval, ratio, ordinal, and nominal. SPSS considers interval scale and ratio scale as one, right? So this is scale value. Now, if I'll go back to this data view, you will find there are 2 variables defined here, gender also and sales also, right? I'm just inputting the data at random data I'm putting in. This is the data I have put in, right? This is the data of 20 people I have collected, 25 people I have, let's say, collected. The sales values are 53, 54, 55, 52. I have prepared the data. Sorry for wasting your time in this, but somehow it is not opening up. These are the values of the sales in thousands. Let's say sales, these are the values, these are the gender, though it is not a meaningful data I have entered, because when I'm saying sales, it is not correct. It should be marks rather. I'm changing it, that would be more clear, because if I'm saying sales, it should have been areas, then it would have been more meaningful. Let's say these are the marks based on of students, and their gender is also given to us. And we want to check whether the marks vary among gender or not, right? So now I am going to apply t-test for it. So what we need to do is go to this Analyze tab. In this Analyze tab, first of all, go to this non-parametric test. And in this non-parametric test, go to this legacy dialogues. In this legacy dialogues, you can find out these 2 independent samples, right? Click on this. Your test variable is, say, because I entered their sales of laptop in the label. So that's why it is taking sales of laptop. I have not changed it there. In labels, if I would have changed it to marks of student, it would have shown me marks of students. I have not changed it. You can see it. In variables, यहाँ पे मैंने sales of laptop ही रहने दिया था. So that's why it is showing me sales of laptop only, right? So sales of laptop. And gender is my grouping variable based on which I want to check it, right? And then I'll have to define the groups. I have 2 values, 1 and 2. There are 2 categories only. Continue. Click on this KS test and click OK. So you'll come to this result sheet, right? Now in this result sheet, look for this Comulo Grove, Simrod Z. What is the values here you are getting? Getting some value? 0.978. Can you see this?
It is not visible.
Visible or not?
It is not visible. The result is not visible.
Wait a second.
If to share the entire screen, then it will.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I need to show the entire screen. Yeah, now is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So this 0.978 is greater than 0.5, sorry, this 0.294. You look at this asymptotic significant two-tailed 0.294. This 0.294 value is actually your p value, and this p value is greater than 0.05, right? So my null hypothesis is rejected or not rejected. I just explained you earlier. Width is length between two columns. Okay. Now, what was the null hypothesis in KS test? Yeah, not rejected. It is not rejected. So my data is not finally the normally distributed. So I'll have to apply some other test. Once it is normally distributed, then I can apply the test. Otherwise, applying this test is not acceptable or is not advisable. Okay. Now let me check on this data also. This is the another data we have. We go to this non-parametric test. We go to this. We go to this two independent samples. So your null hypothesis is not rejected. So your null hypothesis was that data is not normally distributed. So my data, once it is not normally distributed, I cannot apply the t-test on it. For applying t-test, I'll have to, sorry, wait a minute. Sorry, I'm wrong. I have, once it is greater than 0.05, it says that data is normally distributed. So once my data is normally distributed, I can apply the t-test. And t-test will be applied through this independent sample t-test. Independent sample t-test, when number of mischiefs will go to this side, gender of the respondent will go to this side. Again, I'll define the groups, and group 1, group 2, continue, and then you click OK. So these are your results. Now look at these results. Equal variance assumed, because in t-test we normally consider that our variance is equal, and we look for these values with equal variance assumed. And with equal variance assumed, if I look at my significant value, it is 0.101, which is again greater than 0.05. So again, my null hypothesis is not rejected. So I can say that my null hypothesis was that marks are not gender biased. So my marks are not gender biased. Finally, I'll say this. Okay. Is it clear, or should I? Because I thought there was a shortage of time. So it has mixed up, created a little confusion. I can come up again if you want. I'm really sorry for the technical glitch. It has created a little confusion, I can understand. And you were here to gain something, but certain glitch. Let me just brief it once again. See, what we were trying to test, that whether the marks of the students depends on gender or not, or they vary among genders or not. I'll not say depend. To be more precise in terms of statistics, my null hypothesis, or I wanted to check, or we wanted to check, that there is no significant difference between the marks, among the marks of male and female of a class, right? There is no significant difference. This was my null hypothesis, and I wanted to test through t-test whether this null hypothesis is right or wrong, right? For that, I have applied t-test. How I have applied it? I went to analyze, I went to compare means, I selected this independent sample t-test. These were my values. I took my independent variable as test variable, dependent variable as test variable. independent as grouping variable, and then I defined my groupings as 1 and 2. If you have given 2 and 3, you will enter 2 and 3. If you have given 0 and 1, you will enter 0 and 1. And then click continue and then click OK. Whatever results you will get in this result, you will look at this equal variance assumed in this row. You will look for this significant value. If this significant value is less than 0.05, you will say null hypothesis is rejected. So my null hypothesis was there is no significant difference between male and female for marks, right? Had this value been less than 0.05, it would have been rejected, and I would have given the answer that there is a significant difference between the marks of male and female at 5% level of significance or at 95% level of confidence, right? Both ways I can write. But in this case, it has come out to be greater than 0.05. So my null is not rejected. So I would say there is no significant difference between the marks of male and female at 5% level of significance. I think now it's clear.
Participants, please write on your chat box.
Someone has written, Dr. Paras has written, let me teach once. Yes, Paras sir, something.
I mean, can continue. I think he has replied to Nagalakshmi.
Should I continue with this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry, sir. I'm really sorry for the.
No, ma'am, you can understand. We are living in the virtual world. It's all
Yeah.
happening.
I'm sorry. And because of that, I have given certain wrong inputs also. I'm sorry for that also. KS test, if your significant value is greater than 0.05, we say that data is normal. But somehow I have given you the wrong inputs. I'm sorry for that because there was a lot of stress that came up at that time. Okay, let me continue further. I'll see this test was applied for independent test. Now, if I want to have a data whereby the two datas talk about paired sample. Let me talk about paired sample test now. See, as I told you earlier also that in analyze, once you'll go for compare means, you will find three types of t-test: one sample t-test, independent sample t-test, and paired sample t-test. We have just now talked about independent sample t-test. If you look at one sample t-test, एक values लिख देती हूँ मैं. Let me just write some values. मैंने यहाँ कुछ values लिख दिए हैं. ये height है. These are the heights of certain people. The data I have collected from, let's say I've collected the data of few candidates in Amity University, and these are their heights. And my earlier researcher says that the average height of students studying in Amity University is 4 feet 5 inches or is 4 feet 8 inches. And I just wanted to compare whether my sample is also giving me the same results or not, right? So whether it is same or my sample results are different, or has there been any change in the sample now? I want to check this based on the earlier researches. So when I'm comparing my data with the population data, then we apply one sample t-test. This is one sample t-test, right? In one sample t-test, test variable will be 1. It will ask you the test value. This test value is your population value, which you have taken from the earlier research. Like earlier research values was 5 feet. So this I'll test from that values that my population value is saying 5 feet. Now I want to test it for this sample and whether it is correct or not. So I'll apply t-test now for this sample. Right? Now here again, my significant p-value has come out to be less than 0.05. So I'll say my null hypothesis is rejected, which was that the average height is 5 feet. Or the sample data is equal to the population data, which is 5 feet. So my null is rejected, null is not rejected, and it says that the sample data is equal to the population data, which is 5. Right? Should I?
And you are on mute. Please unmute.
And you're on
yourself.
mute.
So, so how long I was on mute? I have not seen it. I was asking this only, can we continue, or you have already written that the other speaker is waiting? So if there are any queries, we will, I'll be happy to take it, or we can wind up here only.
I think we can like wrap up this topic, and it was really engaging and enriching to hear you, ma'am. And really thank you for sharing your insights in a very methodological manner, right from choosing the population to framing the hypothesis, understanding the steps of formulating of hypothesis. In fact, the book that you suggested by Mr. N.K. Malhotra, Marketing Research, is my personal favorite. And we could also understand the levels of significance and errors in hypothesis testing and ANOVA. And you have been really patient with the participants, and participants likewise. And you have always tried to keep the session interactive. So thank you very much, ma'am, for addressing the queries very, very promptly. And I now request my next moderator for today's workshop, Devika Chibbar, to continue with the proceedings.
Thank you, Akshat. I'm really sorry for the technical glitches. It would have been much more interesting had there been not any technical glitch, because I think you would have learned more.
And nonetheless, we have participants who are very appreciative of your session, and they are saying that your class was really insightful and valuable. So thank you for sparing your time, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Professor Dharmender, Professor Ruhi Lal, being patient, and please excuse me if I have committed some, sorry for the wastage of the time. I'm really sorry. Next time I'll arrange.
Not at all, ma'am, not at all. It was enriching and enlightening session, and we're very, very grateful to you. Explained such complex topics, such complicated topics, which for scholars and other academicians also, these topics are something they don't understand easily. And the way you have explained each and everything, it was fabulous, ma'am. We are really grateful to you, and we will invite you again for making it clear. And due to, we understand, we are in the
definitely, I would like to. I would like to, if given a chance, because I would like to complete my duty of what was given to me. So thank you so much. And thank you, and grateful for your patience and patience of the audience also. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was really a very enriching session. Thank you.
Thank you. So can I leave the meeting?
Yes, ma'am, if you wish, you can attend the second session also.
Okay, definitely. Okay, thank you.
Sure, ma'am. So I would like to invite Devika to please start the second session of the day.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, Akshat. So I would like, so a very heartfelt welcome to all eminent university members, distinguished speakers, fellow scholars, and our lovely audience. My name is Devika, ASCO research scholar, who once again has got an opportunity to discuss various research ideas through today's workshop on research, project writing, and data analysis organized by Amity School of Communication in association with Amity Academic Staff College. So the art of researching is always necessary, be it for journalistic writing, films, or academics. And today we are going to learn the key mechanisms of the last segment. That is how to do a research paper well. Today is the 6th day of the workshop and the 12th session where we will be covering hypothesis formation and testing, also writing powerful conclusions. Now, in the general scenario, hypothesis testing is a way for you to test the results of a survey or experiments to see if you have meaningful results at the end. But a more reformed and expert knowledge is required to gain better understanding of the topic, for which Amity University has brought in a senior academician who is going to guide you in all the aspects. Please welcome our expert, Dr. Zanesh Babu, who is the chairperson, Department of Visual Media and Communication, Amrita School of Arts and Sciences, which is located in the serene Brahmasthanam Temple Complex in Kochi, Kerala. It is one of Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, which is again one of India's top-ranked universities with 7 campuses in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Karnataka, with A++ accreditation by NAAC. Dinesh sir's area of research interest include new and social media, environmental and health communication, animation studies, journalism, and mass communication. To his credit, he has published more than 30 research papers and has presented more than 25 papers in national and international conferences, and has organized more than 40 workshops and sessions. So it is a really proud moment for me, sir, to welcome you to our workshop. And now I would request you to address our live viewers. And sir, I'm sorry we are running a little late, but you will still have time till 4:30 to address all the live viewers here. So you can unmute yourself and talk about the subject. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Devika, and thank you to the organizing team, Dr. Rosilal and Professor Dharmendra Kumar sir, for inviting me for this good lecture series, Packet Government Program. And once again, I thank everyone and happy to see you all in this virtual mode. And so today, the topic area which I was focusing to discuss is like, am I audible, right? Is it clear from my side?
Yes, sir. You're perfectly audible and visible. It's fine.
Thank you so much. So my area which I'm focusing towards is like a statement of problem, how we have to identify a statement of problem for a research, and in which way we have to focus on the statement of problem, what is mean by a good research problem it was, and how we have to frame an objective and a research question towards our problem, and how we have to identify a methodology from which we will be formulating our research design to the research. So these are the things I want to give in a very short time period. I have to give you a very detailed understanding about what is research and what is the statement of problem. So here, before going towards the statement of problem, I mostly prefer more towards an interactive session. So if it is possible, if people in the audience and attendees, if they can unmute and they can give me an understanding about what is statement of problem on research, it will be well and good. So as we can continue with that. So what is problem statement in research?
The participants can write on chat box, but they are not allowed to speak.
Yeah. So it is like we know everyone like research is a systematic investigative process employed to increase or revise a current knowledge by discovering a new facts. So the statement of problem refers to the critical issue that your research seek to address. In other words, if we can tell, like it captures the existing knowledge gap that your study aims to bridge using reliable results or outcome. That is meant by a definition of a statement of problem. How we can frame a statement of problem and how we can identify that as a good problem statement. So the main few points we have to identify is like it should have a concrete and concise manner of telling out, and it doesn't capture ideas vaguely. So the main point which we have to focus on statement of problem is like it should be very concrete and concise, and to set the aims and objectives of our systematic investigation, and it should justifies your research and draws an attention to the study's significance. So these three main points play a tremendous role in identifying a good problem statement. And the problem statement, important is how this problem statement is important in research writing. Writing a good research problem serves out both the researcher and the readers to understand what exactly the research is going to be. And it allows you to map out the specific aims and objectives of our study. So this is the main thing that is flips in both the side of the researcher and the reader. While it comes towards the reader side, it should identify the core reasons of your research and see how your research fits into an existing body of knowledge on that particular area. So I will be sharing a screen. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah. So here I just pointed out a few areas where we can identify a research problem for our research. This is a wide extreme area where we will be working on our media studies, that is towards social media, digital media, film history, documentary films, animation theory, photography, visual semiotics, environmental communication, health communication. So these are some of the areas which I missed some areas also. So from here we can find out how we have to identify a research problem, the problem statement. So main thing is like we have an individual areas where we can pitch our research problem. For example, if we move towards the social media. So from social media, we can identify our research problem in different areas. Like for example, if it is a social media is a general terminology. From social media, we will be tossing out lot of research areas and research problems in our daily life through our observation, through our reading, through our understandability towards the concepts or content. We will be grabbing out information regarding any of kind of things which will lead towards the research. Some way, if possible, for example, social media, and if you are combining any other area like environmental communication, if you are joining this two, if you are relating this two particular vast area, we will be getting down into another one research problem that will be speaking about how this social media play a tremendous role towards environmental communication, how this social media is creating a strategy to plan on and develop reducing the challenges towards environmental communication. So likewise, we can create a research problem based on the detailed area. For example, if it is like media literacy, and if I'm going to touch with something like media literacy towards online journalism, I'm just taking a too vast area and I'm just connecting this two area, and I'm planning to bring out one research statement of problem in the sense. Here the media literacy, you know very well, we are facing a most important situation during this COVID, such as COVID and other way, like depending on the information that is towards media literacy. And while moving towards online journalism, we can find a lot of misinformation and disinformation which is flowing to our through social media, through an online portals and all. So to find out a research area and the research problem, it is very much clear that we can identify a research problem based on a vast area. And while choosing out a vast area, we can make it narrow down into one specific area where we are going to point out our research. So moving towards the second slide, this is we usually tell like there is two kinds of method in which we will be finding out our research. That is towards detection method and induction method of research. So while moving with the detection and induction method of research, while pointing out that usually the detection method of research will be having a downflow of arrow which will lead from theory, a hypothesis, observation, and confirmation. So in an elaborative way, word if we are telling is like whenever we are starting out our research and whenever we are starting out and identifying a research problem, we will be doing in two phases. One is a deductive phase or an inductive phase. In deductive phase, what will be a primary factor in the sense it is theory. So the research will start with this theory, and it will have an assumption or a hypothesis. Based on the assumption of the researcher, based on the theory, we will be moving towards an observation or a data collection to confirm the assumption of our research through the theory. So this is one method where we can find out, get out any information or the result for our research study through a deductive method. For example, if we are choosing out an agenda setting theory. So agenda setting theory is giving out a lot of information, with this giving out a priming, timing, and framing of priming, timing, and framing factors in the theory. So this priming, framing, and priming the thing and the factors, which is giving out an understandability towards the researchers about what is priming, what is timing, and what is framing. So while priming, in the sense how the information is given a priority to the people to whom it is given. So the organization will have a certain agenda on it. So based on the theory, we are now going to have an assumption, that is this particular information is given to people relate with the scheme, relate with certain schemes. It is getting, there is a gatekeeping method is there, or there is an agenda setting is there in between the flow of information from one place to another person, that is society. There is a gap. So based on the theory, we will be assuming we will be bringing out an assumption, that is hypothesis. Based on the hypothesis, we will be moving towards an observation, that is towards collecting of data or information for our research. So based on the data collection, we will be moving towards the confirmation of our assumption through the theory. That is one way of methodology, that is the deductive method. And moving towards an inductive method, it is an upflow of arrow, that is towards we will have an observation first, and we will create a pattern for our study. Then we will have an assumption towards our study, and it will lead towards a theoretical perspective. So how, in the sense, for example, every day we will be moving from one place to another place for any of the needs. So whenever we are moving in our vehicle, if you can find in one particular area, we can find in a week it will be 10 accidents or 10 accidents will be happening in the same spot for regularly in a week. So while we are just moving on that place, we can observe that incident is happening. There we will be having a question why it is happening, what made it happen, what kind of issue is that, what people around there is telling about it, what kind of precautionary steps has been taken by the government or the persons who is in charge of that. So these questions will create a problem of statement for our research. So based on our observation. So what we will do, we will be creating a pattern. That pattern will be called as, we will be calling that as a data sheet, or we will be calling that as a research design for our study, and with the framing of objective, research question, and hypothesis. So based on the objective, we will be framing out our tentative hypothesis, which will lead to a theory. So I will be giving a very clear idea with one of our study, which is what we are doing here. Based on that, I can give you a very clear detailed idea about the studies. For example, here one of our scholars, she is doing her study towards self-medication and its consequences and the impact of media, how the media is playing a role on self-medication. This is a study it is going on. So the study which is chosen is an inductive method, which means based on the observation, based on the live articles and the information which is gathered from many of the sources, many of the research papers, we identified a topic area which will be giving out an understanding towards the to get out a research gap. So what we find out as research gap is how media is playing a role on giving aware to the people on self-medication. What is self-medication? How we have to move towards self-medication? How we have to approach self-medication? This is the exact research gap which is identified through the research problem. So we know very well we will be consuming medicines for from day-to-day life. If we have any fever, suddenly we will be going and taking out a tablet of paracetamol, dolo, whatever it is there in our home, we will be taking out without having any prescriptions from the doctors. So that doesn't, we will be thinking that that doesn't lead to any kind of seriousness, but in future it may bring out some seriousness. To understand about that gap, how people is consuming this medicine, what kind of medicines, what kind of self-medication practices they have, how media is giving aware on that, how media is playing a role on that, how media is creating an impact on that to reduce that kind of self-medication in various districts in southern part of India. So this is an area in which the study is moving on. So we identified a problem and research gap for that. Based on the observation, we created a pattern that is called research objective. Based on the research objectives, we framed a hypothesis that there is a self-medication practices in various places, depends on the different situations. So the different situations will be like different factors will be like based on the gender, education qualification, employment status, and the locality of the place, and reach to the medical people. So those every factors will have a detailed definition towards the research area. So based on that, then we will be moving towards the tentative hypothesis that is called our assumption. Based on the assumption, we will be moving towards theory. So the theory will be playing a very important role in every research. So we used to do like whenever we are doing our research, we will be having certain steps to find out how to frame a research methodology. For example, once we are just framing out our objectives, we will be moving to frame our research theoretical framework and conceptual framework. So there is two frameworks which we will be always adapted to our research. One is like conceptual framework, another one is a theoretical framework. So what is the difference between a conceptual framework and theoretical framework in the sense? So while moving towards a conceptual framework, so the researcher, he or she will do a conceptual ideology for the entire research, how the research is going to be. What is my factor of variables? What will be of an independent variable of a study? What will be of a dependent variable of study? How this variable is going to affect, going to bring out a result for the research problem? How this variables is going to fill the gap on research? This flow chart will be created by the researcher in a conceptual manner. And what is theoretical framework? The theoretical framework will be as like, for example, I given an example like self-medication. Here, what theoretical framework will be adapted, like for example, self-belief model. This is one theoretical model which is adapted for the study. So this self-belief model will have certain variables. So those variables will have a relationship with our conceptual variables, and it will have a comparative or different relationship with the conceptual variable. So we have to understand both the variables in conceptual and theoretical frameworks, and it has to get related with our study. Based on the relation on conceptual and theoretical framework, it will lead to identify the information or the data collection for our research, which will lead to understand how we have to frame out our research design. So moving towards the research design, after we are understanding about a conceptual framework and theoretical framework, we will be moving towards our research design. So the research design will have a certain areas like sampling techniques, what kind of variables we are going to find, or what is the variables it was, and how we are going to collect the data for our study. So everything will be depends on the research design. So when we are thinking about this research design and sampling techniques and all, before that we have to understand what is variables. May I know what is variables? May I know what is variables? Any of you people?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah. Thank you. So what is variables? How is it
So,
going to be most important in our research?
yes, people are suggesting on the chat box that these are instruments that can be measured, and yes, so variables are basically there are characteristics that can take on different values, probably such as height, age, temperature, anything which
That
can
will
be
get
measured.
varied. Yeah, that will get varied
Yes.
in the pot. Yeah, that is called variable. Why this variable is very important in every research? Because this variable will be connecting the research gap, and this variable will be connecting how we are going to collect the information or data from the sample group, and this variable is going to validate our result in qualitative and quantitative manner. So while moving with this qualitative and quantitative manner, we have a different methodologies for our study, that is qualitative and quantitative. In that, we will be having a content analysis towards qualitative and quantitative, textual analysis, visual analysis. So we have a lot of defined methodologies for our research. How this methodology and methods is getting different? Can you give me the difference between the methodology and methods? What is methodology and what is methods? What is methodology and what is methods? Methodology get clearly defined. Yes, yeah. Great.
So methods are basically ways how to probably measure these variables, and methodology are the instruments, the techniques probably.
Okay. Any other?
Neha Kumari says in our chat box that methodology means approach to the research.
Research. Okay.
Yes.
And methods is? And methods is? Methodology means an approach towards the research, and methods? It's a part of methodology. Okay. So the methodology is an approach to research in the sense that the methods get varied. Methods is the tools of data and research design. That's right. It
Yes.
depends on the research. It depends on the researcher, and it depends on the research objective which we focus. And yeah. Thank
So
you,
Amit
Amit and
Kumar
Neha.
says, yeah, Amit
Yes.
Kumar says method is collecting data and methodology is analyzing data.
Janki also, yes. Thank you for everyone for giving out a good reply on here. Yeah, so the methods which will depend on the researcher based on the research problem and objective which he or she identified. So every objective will have a different research questions. For example, if we have one objective and we will have a 4 or 5 research questions for one single objective, which will be giving out an answer. Each research question will have its own variables. So the variables will be defined with the research questions and objectives, and the research question and objective will train the methods for our study. So the methods will be of different. For example, I recently went through one study which is discussing about gender bias on daily newspapers in Tamil Nadu. Okay, I recently went through one article on that, and in that what he is going to do is like he is just approaching towards how the gender biased words is used in Tamil news, English newspapers or in Tamil newspapers, how the women is represented, in which word, how the woman is represented in the words. This is a study which he is going to do, and this is an objective which we have. And also he has one more objective is like how the gender biased words used in women crime stories. This is one objective he framed. So both the things can be done only through on a quantitative analysis, quantitative content analysis. How this quantitative content analysis has been done, can be done. Any idea on this? How we have to do that? I know before me there is one session that is Professor Deepsika did that session, which is towards SPSS and quantitative data analysis. So before moving towards the quantitative data analysis, before going and uploading our data or information to a SPSS or some way, how we have to bring out that? How we have to collect our data? In which method we will do that? Any idea? For example, you people are from different states, and you can just think of that. You want to understand what kind of a gender biased information is given through words or through photographs in a newspaper for 3 months of period in 2 different newspapers. Okay, it can be of Hindu or it can be of Indian Express or some way it was. Okay, just give me an answer that how you will collect the data, how you collect an information data collection for this. What kind of method you will use? Because every study demands its own methods. Secondary and primary source.
Secondary and primary source.
Yeah, that's right. It's secondary and primary source. Primary source can be of interview with the editors or reporters who are editors, and secondary data will be of news articles which came on the regular day on for the 3 months for the 2 newspapers. You will be taking out the newspapers. How you will collect the data? That is my question.
Veena says questionnaire, interview.
Whether the questionnaire is needed here, because we want to understand what kind of a gender-based identification is shown in the photographs in 2 different daily newspapers for 3 months. Whether we need to go for questionnaire. If we want to go for questionnaire, we have to know, or we have to have an objective that what kind of impact is created to the readers, those photographs. If we want that, yeah, content analysis. What kind of content analysis it was?
Okay.
We are talking about photographs here, but that how gender
photograph.
disparity is shown through
Two
photographs.
things was that. Two things was that. If you're going towards the content analysis, towards qualitative, to represent the visual formation on the photograph, it is entirely different. That is
Mhm.
qualitative analysis. And if you're going to only know how many photographs is having a bias towards that, you want to know only the count. You want to know only count and which newspaper gives a predominant role on that, which newspaper plays the predominant role on that. So you need only this objective, then what is that? What kind of analysis was? So it depends on the objective. What method we have to adapt. What Pramod he told us content analysis, right? In which way it was. Here the content is on a visual, the photograph. Whether based on the objective which I framed is like how many photographs has been giving out a gender biased information through photographs, which newspaper is giving a more gender biased information. That is the objective I framed here now. I don't frame any kind of visual perception of thoughts. Ethical source of data, and then accordance we can plan to fulfill the objective. Okay. Ethical source of data. Which means depends on researcher's skill. Okay. So depends
Will
on the
geography also play the role there? I mean, different states we're talking about, so different regions which have the role of women or not. So that also plays an important. Geography
that
also plays.
a role. That also plays a role. So based on the as like what Abdul told us, like based on the research objective, it may differ. It may have a different kind of methods. For example, if that's why I'm asking each people like how your perception is coming, how you are framing your methods. This is the objective I am giving you. How you plan to frame your methods for this particular study. In which way you will do that? Which make you fill your gap, feasibility towards so it may both quantitative and qualitative. Okay, reaching data. Okay, so yeah, the feasibility and reaching data, which means, for example, now in my hand I have like 2 different dailies is with me. For 3 months I have a hot copy bundle of with me. Like this, I have a 3 months of newspaper articles was with me now in my table for this 2 dailies. That is can be of Hindu and that can be one as Indian Express, whatever it is. Now I have the data with me. How I will extract the data for my research to fill the gap of research. How I will extract my data? In which method I will extract the data? That is my question. Because I have a data. The data is with me in my hand. How I will take my data? And that too in quantitative. As Deepsika ma'am told, like we will be finding out like if male is like we will be coding as 1, female coding as 2 to bring out a statistical result. Everything is fine, everything is right. How we will move to that end to making codifying it? What we will do? How we will do our research on that? So we will be creating out a coding sheet, some way of coding sheet through an Excel, which will be bringing out like, for example, it is 3 months in the sense 3 months, it is like 90 days. So 90 days of column will be there and it will be having a lot of information which is related to our research objective. Okay, how many gender bias news has been reported? Based on the reported news, how many of them they use their photographs? What kind of photographs is used? Whether it is ethical or not. So every data has to be fed properly. Once the data is get fed, it has to move towards the numerical values also. Then only you can take and upload that exact data into an SPSS that towards the quantitative analysis. So this seeks the data which we are going to extract from our information seeks, and it is depends on the objective which we are focusing. For example, I can tell one more study which is happening here, and yesterday we had a very good discussion on that, like film and tourism. So the film and tourism, how the films play a tremendous role towards tourism. So we know very well the film is bringing out the films which are shorter in many of the tourist spots attracts the audience, and they will be moving towards that particular area to visit, and they will be moving and enjoying their holidays in that particular locations where already some of the movies has been shorter. That is right. And we had a discussion what exactly the gap is there to study on the research. So the gap which the research has given is like, so I'm going to study about the space. What kind of space is given for that particular location? Why the script demanded that? Okay. And what made the demand towards that particular location to shoot? So those all things has been discussed, and here now, what kind of methodology we can move on? What kind of study we have to move? What kind of methodology we have to adapt? It may
So
differ, yeah.
won't it be qualitative? I mean, we would be going and asking the locals in the region as to why probably the movies and what makes this place important, probably tourism, what things are there. So asking locals those questions, then
Okay.
probably
And one more thing is like the same question has been that to me, like whether you are going to study about how the tourism is encouraged and improvised through the film, or how the people living there and their economic growth and other factors got increased. What exactly you are going to see in your research? So the research will have a line, but it has a multiple of branches in its way. Okay, we have to understand what kind of branches is that. The branches will bring us to narrow down our research into one extent towards our objective. And I can also give one more example of one study. That is like we are discussing about like corporate social responsibility funds and how it plays a role during the COVID towards brand building on the brands. For example, if it is Tata or it is in Mahindra, whatever it is, how the CSR funds give a brand towards their brand building, which means like how it improvises their brand building, how people they look over their brand, how the consumers look over their brand, how it is effective towards brand building. So this is a study, this is an objective which is framed in the sense what kind of method we have to do, how we are going to collect the data for it. So what we discussed is like the collection of data is for like 8 to 8 districts in 2 different states where the CSR activity is happening by the companies. So first listed the top most CSR activity companies, what kind of factor for which area they are giving a CSR funds for whether it is education, health or other activities, women empowerment, what exactly it was. And we have to understand that whether the same company is giving CSR fund in 2 different states where we are going, where we choose our research area, which means like we chosen 2 different states. One is Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, it is really a different demography, nature, different culture, different tradition, everything is different. And here the CSR, the companies, the investment and CSR funds also is getting different. And for which they are giving up, they are giving out their funds, whether to education. If it is education in Wayanad or in Thrissur or Kochi in Ernakulam, whether same company is giving the same thing towards the in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai or Coimbatore. If they are giving, then we can take that as one sample, right? So likewise, we have to understand what kind of method we are going to adapt, who is our sample population, how we are going to identify our sample. Yes, pilot study will help. Definitely the pilot study will help a lot. And the previous research will help a lot to understand and frame our research methods. So why I'm telling this in the sense, every objective, it seeks the methodologies, it seeks the methods for our study. Based on the objective, it will move with the qualitative or quantitative or mixed methodology. Based on the mixed methodology, it will seek towards research design, that is towards methods, in which method we are going to do with, whether it is a survey or questionnaire pattern, whether it is a focus group discussion, whether it can be of in-depth interview. I know very well that you people know what is in-depth interview, focus group discussion, survey, and all. Like, what is the difference in whether it is a qualitative or quantitative? I know you people may know. So, how we are going to design that? Because everyone knows that methodology is the heart of research. Once it is very clearly defined, then we don't want to bother about the other entire things. Because once it is very clear and transparent what we are going to do, from where we are going to start, and what is the result and what is the assumption which is going to be proved and how it is going to fill the gap of a research, then it is really good for us to understand what is exactly we want to do. So I think I can stop here and I can listen more from your side and we can have an interaction, I think.
Sir, we would also want to cover as to what is hypothesis. We discussed that, but
Yes,
how
yes.
hypothesis differs from hypothesis testing, and how a powerful conclusion can be put up at the end. So we would want to cover these two topics as well: hypothesis testing, formulation of hypothesis testing, and the powerful conclusion. Because
Yes.
many people get confused on hypothesis and hypothesis testing. So what would be your say there?
Hypothesis testing will be entirely different. Like, for example, it depends on the research and it depends on the result which we are attaining and what assumption which we had. It may everyone know very well, like the hypothesis testing, whether it is valid or invalid, whether our hypothesis is proved or unproved. It is not a big fact in the research. Exactly what we attain from the research, what exactly this field is giving out as an answer for our study, that's play a main role in the research. In my opinion, the hypothesis is like an assumption and the prediction which the researcher will have before he is going to start the research. And testing out our hypothesis, because some way in qualitative we don't have such a kind of thing to test the hypothesis or not. Many of our study in qualitative analysis, it will be more towards descriptive. We will not go and test any kind of hypothesis there. Okay, so it depends on the study and it depends on the researcher how he is going to give out the answer for his questions.
Right, sir. But sir, for an unseasoned researcher, I mean, there are many people who come into the field and they are not very fluent with the technical skills of a researcher. So what are the general challenges that one should overcome while formulating questions to answer the hypothesis?
So the main problem which the people will be facing is like understanding about the area which he or she is choosing. First, they have to understand the research problem from which area they are choosing of. And they have to understand what kind of study the previous research has been happened before. What is the outcome? What is the result of that? Then only they have to move forward, because wasting of time for the previous research, which already have a result, and going and again and doing a research is entirely different. If it is a time period research, it may differ. If a same result is going from is coming from the same research in the sense, then there is no any value to do a research on those areas. So they have to be very much clear with the area of research and problem of research. And one more thing I have to give you is like, if you have a time, you can go and search it in Google, like socialresearchmethods.net. The socialresearchmethods.net is the website which will be giving out knowledge data. For example, can you see my page?
Yes, sir, we can.
So socialresearchmethods.net. So here, if you are going like sampling technique, whatever it is very clearly defined, and it is most understandable for us to understand what is sampling methods, designing, relate with research.
Okay.
So
And sorry,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, sorry.
Yes, David.
Okay. So hypothesis, I had this question. Where did it go? So hypothesis, the role of hypothesis in scientific research can be determined very easily. Okay, this is yes, this is no. But in social research, it can lead to a grayscale.
Yes. It is open-ended. Hypothesis will become an open-ended in a social science research, because we can't define it properly with the research. If it is an applied research, if it is an action research, if you are doing any kind of a strategy towards campaigns and all, and looking over the level of knowledge or understandability towards the concepts, whatever it is, we can understand and we can bring a quantitative data or information. And for example, if you are going and doing any of the study towards qualitative, that is film-based research and all, gender studies, how this gender representations in film, how disability people's representations in film. One of the study in our department is towards Malayalam cinema and how the disabilities are being represented in Malayalam films. So it has both the ways of qualitative and quantitative patterns. So many of the researchers and many of the academicians, they will be telling out like we need more quantitative because to find out the hypothesis, prove it, testing and all. So as a researcher, both is good and both is valuable. And only thing is like what exactly the gap is filled by the researcher through his problem, through his method. That is most important.
So if I have to say, what is the exact difference between a research problem and hypothesis? What would that be?
The exact research problem and that is the exact difference. That is like hypothesis and assumption or prediction, which is framed by the researcher for this problem of research. For example, like I'm telling like this particular situation, how to tell is like, yeah, the CSR funds, which is given by the companies, definitely giving out a very good flow of income generation or brand building for that particular company. This is my assumption. My assumption is like I have one research problem, like whether this company's brand is getting built among the consumers through their CSR activities. That is my problem I want to understand. So my assumption is yes, definitely it is building the brand towards the company and it is increasing their sale, increasing the consumers. Okay, that is my assumption in the sense. So the assumption is really like this is an assumption which I have to prove. Maybe my assumption may be wrong, but it doesn't have any kind of relations with the research problem. The assumption which we have is to understand before we are moving towards the study. Okay, it is a prediction. Prediction may get failed in any way.
Right.
And you people know, we have another one web page that is called University of Trinity. They have a communication theorist. University of Trinity, they have a theory of clusters, which will help every researchers to find out their theories for their research. For example, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, I can.
It is available as PDF. Just you can download the PDF. It's very simple. If you go to University of Trinity with the theory of clusters, you can find these are the theories was there. So this theory can be just easily downloaded with one PDF. This is a theorist. They categorize that into communication information technology theory, communication process, health communication. If I going to agenda setting theory, I can find what is agenda setting theory, history and orientation assumptions, what the theory model was. So with this, we can identify the factors, the variables for our study, that is towards theoretical framework. And we can relate the theoretical framework with our conceptual framework, what we framed as a research design and variables. So this particular PDF will help every communication researcher to understand and they can choose their theorists for the research.
So can you please repeat the URL? What was the?
University of Trinity, theory of clusters. If you put in a Google search, it becomes.
Sure, so we'll share that with
Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir, University of Trinity theory of clusters.
The
Sure,
first one
sir.
leads to that.
Oh, that looks very informative and it looks interesting. So, I mean, every researcher fears that drawing the wrong conclusions may be one of the biggest challenges. So, is there a way to identify that initially? Obviously, yes, theoretical knowledge and studying the framework and everything is required. But how can we prevent that initially?
It is really required because every study will depends with one theory. Without theory, it is not possible because, for example, as being a researcher, you will be doing one research and you will come with one conclusion as a result and you will be filling out one research gap. That research gap will be followed by like 100 or 200 people in the sense. Then it becomes a part of model, the strategy, which they will be following, which they will be adapting for you from your study, and it will lead towards a theoretical perspective. Okay. So the theory will have a variables as like what you are doing, as what your research is going to do. You will find out certain variables for your research. That variables will help you to understand and get information from the sample groups. Those variables can be adapted by some other researchers after 10 years or 20 years to collect the information from other sample groups, and the same kind of result may be there, or they will be getting different result for their sample through your variables, and they will have some other strategy at that time period. Okay, so that will lead to extend the theories. So this is the way the theoretical perspectives and theories will get expanded based on, like we used to study in our communication theory models like sender receiver, sender message receiver, then sender message noise was there, feedback was there. All things came when there is a demand for the things. Okay.
So getting to that only, the way communication has changed over the years. So if supposedly I assume that your technology has always changed the work culture of any organization, and if we have to relate that to gender roles, supposedly we're talking about journalism here. So that is my area of research. Actually, that is what I am researching into.
What is the area of research you are doing?
Mine is implications of artificial intelligence in Indian news media, challenges and opportunities. So basically, what I'm trying to understand is how the technology innovation is always there. We are talking about artificial intelligence today. Tomorrow we'll have Internet of Things. So again, something is coming up. But how it is changing the workplace culture, specifically gender roles for women, because there are already very gender disparities in the Indian journalism. So how it is changing there? So if we have to form probably a hypothesis there, or some objectives, or the methodology, everything we have talked about till now. So
Yes.
what would be your suggestion there?
So your study is towards the AI and its role in Indian media, and how it is going to affect gender-based, that is to women journalists.
Majorly, yes.
Yeah.
So that is what I'm
Okay.
just trying to figure out. I'm still trying to figure out,
Okay.
but
So,
yeah.
Here, so the data collection and the thing is like how many media organizations get adapted towards the AI-based news gathering and gather informations. Did you went through that?
Yes, I have included. So there are like 4 or 5 organizations which are already working on the concept, and they're already bringing in those technologies. And I still have to go to that data collection process and all those steps. But yes, that formulation.
What factors is going to affect a woman? Because both genders is working in the same location, same organization. How it is going to affect the woman? In which way it is going to affect? What kind of factors is going to affect them? Can you give me a different?
I would actually seek out how women's probably ranking or the position in the organization moves up because of the role of that technology.
Okay.
Probably something like that. Maybe this. I'm still. That's what I say. I'm just trying
So
to
that
figure
is your
out.
assumption, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just try to bring some kind of a good conclusion for your assumption. That is I can tell.
Okay.
Because
So
it is really interesting, but how it is going to happen, I don't know. You have to read a lot and you have to bring a lot of information that is like in which method you are going to do. That
So
is towards
methodology mostly, I think, qualitative, like we were talking about questionnaires and we were talking about in focus, in open-ended interviews and focused discussions. So majorly that is what is only going to help out, because we're talking about the theoretical part of it, basically.
how it is towards the Indian media or towards any of the regional media. Because if it is moving towards
Indian media,
continue to-
majorly probably English media and Hindi media majorly, not the regional ones.
not a regional one. And even that too will be of biggest task, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you give me any one example of any of the media organization which is running with the AI based news?
Running with AI based news?
Yes.
Jagran News is doing that, and also Quint is doing that. Webcoof, so they try to fact check basically.
Okay.
So they, and also NDTV has its usage for YouTube. For their, I mean, they have increased their subscribers through the use of AI strategies via YouTube.
It's really nice to hear those kind of research, because we are also having one kind of research that is towards artificial, yes, something like role of artificial intelligence in advertising promotion.
Okay.
So that is the area which we planned, and we thought like it is more advanced, and we don't want to go and stick on because without having the data, it is
Trust
very
me.
much
I mean,
horrible
that's
to.
yes, and we are
Okay.
just talking about artificial intelligence, but technologies has actually reached to Internet of Things. So these are jargons, and yes, we have a question here. Abdul Rahman is asking
Yes.
almost 90. Acha, you're reading it? Should I read it for
I'm
you?
reading it, yes. Suppose a researcher use both primary and secondary data for his or her research to complete using both the data sets, good or not. Using both the data set is really good because the primary data will be of a primary source of information which the researcher is collecting. The secondary data will be of supporting document for you, which will be giving out understandability towards the time period of research and giving out a valid information for you. So both the things is really good, and the primary data will have a huge responsibility towards the research because it is a primary source. As a researcher, you will be going to the field and you will be analyzing it, and you will be taking out an information, gathering an information from people straight away. So that's having a most valuable thing, and both mixed method is really good for a study, which will be giving out a most authentication for your research. I think Abdul, I given an answer for you.
Yes. So also talking about powerful conclusions. What should be the length of the
The
conclusion?
powerful conclusion is like giving out a policy decisions, a recommendations. That is a powerful conclusion of the research, which is like once we are finishing out our study and we are giving out, yes, I did my research and this is a conclusion that what I assumed is right. That is not only a powerful conclusion. It is like we have to give a recommendation and we have to give a suggestion and we have to make that as a policy changing decisions. That should be of a researcher, that to a media researcher, that should create an impact in the society.
But
Giving
what
out a-
should be the major segments? As in, should it be like how many words or how many paragraphs?
Not like
And-
that. It is like, for example, if it is going towards the suggestions, the suggestion can be of 5 or 6 suggestions to the different entities, like any of the organizations or to the government. There is no any kind of a defined terminology like 500 words or 1,000 words should be on a conclusion. It is not possible for the researcher to conclude this research with 500 words or 1,000 words. It depends on the result which he attained from the study. So usually we will be concluding our research while we are ending our thesis. While we are writing out our thesis at the end, we will be going for a conclusion. Even an introduction will be written only in the end of the thesis. So many of our researchers, they will be coming and they will be asking, sir, I am starting my introduction part. So we used to tell them like, don't do that. It is the at last in the end of the conclusion, then only you have to go for introduction because you did all the research. Entire research is done by you. You only know how to introduce your research to the readers. So now only you can write your introduction part. Before that, if you are writing the introduction part, it will be of copying and pasting some other's work or some other kind of definitions from any of the sources. What is new media? What is health communication? We will be getting a lot of information from various sources and we will be putting that in the introduction. That is not needed for any kind of readers who is going to read your research. They need what kind of very truthful introduction you are going to give for your entire thesis. That is needed for them. Yes.
So I read somewhere like your research starts with a problem and ends with a problem. So when we say that conclusion,
yes, that is the suggestion. That is
so
the
should we
suggestion.
give the suggestion in the conclusion, or it should be like very concrete and closed-ended?
No, any research will give a concrete and defined result. It will lead to another research.
So therefore, it starts with a
open.
problem and ends with another problem.
Yes,
There's
it is
another
open.
query which
Maybe
comes up in the
sometimes
mind.
it will end in this day. After 10 years, the same study will be reframed in different perspective in different research problem.
We
What
have
should
another
be-
question. What should be the sequence or process while writing research work or thesis? Actually, it's interesting.
Yeah, the thing is like when we are starting out our research, the main thing which we have to focus is like how we are going to choose our research problem, narrow downing our research area. As like what I shown you in the first slide, we have a lot of areas to do a research as being a media study people, students or scholars or researchers. So based on the area, we will be finding out a research problem for our study and narrow downing our research area. And once we are finding out a research problem, then we will be moving to frame our objective, hypothesis, research question, the methods. So the methodology has to be the first predominant role for our study. But the literature review. Parallelly, we have to move towards the literature review also. Why? In the sense, the literature review will be helping you to understand what kind of research has been done previously, in which method it has been done, what kind of theories it is adapted towards it. Everything depends on that. So the literature review and methodology has to be simultaneously run through when we are starting out writing our research. Then the literature review will be getting end only when you are giving out a conclusion or introduction chapter towards the end. Till that, the literature review will have always an information for you to put it in the literatures or somewhere in introduction or in discussion part. And after methodology, then the literature review will be of continuing. Once the methodology is getting over, you will be ready to go for data collection. That is towards your fourth chapter, that is analysis and findings of your research. Then the fifth chapter will be of discussion. Some people, they will be combining both analysis and discussion as one chapter. Some people, they will be giving out in a different chapter, that is discussion, where you will be giving out, proving your hypothesis and all. Then it will move towards conclusion. Then again, you will be writing your introduction chapter where you will be introducing the readers about your research. There it gets ends. So I think I given an answer for from where we have to start.
Right, sir. And thank you so much, sir. I mean, the session was so informative and it almost covered all the aspects of the research process, from the introduction to the problem statement, objectives, hypothesis testing, and a powerful conclusion. And I especially loved all those examples that you gave, people who are doing research in your university and the way they are taking up different ideas. So that is very interesting. And we really look forward to hearing from you more. The session was very powerful and very informative. And thank you so much, sir. Rui ma'am, I would want you to conclude the session. And thanks, sir, for this amazing session.
Thank you for hearing. I think it is very 4:50, I think so. I'm thanking you all for listening to me, making this session more engaging.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to give you thanks because you have explained everything so beautifully, and the examples you have quoted and the websites you have suggested for further research. And these are really very, very informative for all the participants. So we are really thankful to you. You have included everything starting from the introduction part, then objective framing, problem statement, research question, then analysis. Again, you have explained so beautifully, deductive and inductive, and students and participants, normally they have confusion about it, but you explained beautifully. Talked about analysis part also, hypothesis testing, conclusion, powerful conclusion. So it was so beautifully covered, each and everything. We are really grateful to you that in such short notice you have accepted and you have prepared so well and explained beautifully. It was a great session, a very deep insight about everything. We are really thankful to you, and we are looking forward to invite you again and again for the other sessions and help our research scholars also for their thesis for discussion during our research committee meetings and other collaboration we would like to do with you for academic purposes. So thank you so much, sir. I would like to thank all the participants for your active participation. The kind of questions you shows that how much interested you are, and you are participating, asking questions, solving all your doubts. This is really great. This is a workshop where we are learning by practicing things, asking questions, and involving ourselves in the entire process. So thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, Devika, for moderating the session so beautifully. And I like to thank my core committee member, Professor Dr. Dharmender Kumar, Dr. Rubaid Asfaq, Shweta, Mansi, Zakia. So these are the core members. Thank you so much, everyone, for conducting the session successfully. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I would request IT team to kindly close the session.